Poor Trevor. Okay, thank you, Trevor, for joining us. Even amidst all of your technical difficulties, we are here and ready to go live. Trevor with Dominion Lending is our mortgage broker here today. So, Trevor, this topic that I really want to talk about, rather, it's been coming up in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and I happen to live in a town that has a university. So it comes up quite often in friend circles here too. And the question is, should I buy a second home? Because if your kid is going to live in it, right, while they're in the university, that's really just
Yep.
to paint the picture. This isn't like a vacation home. People are thinking, should I buy an investment property or should I buy a second home where my kid can live in it? Right. So that's
Yeah.
really the topic because I know that, there's probably different down payment structures and tax benefits and things like that. But that's why we have you. So please walk us
So I'm
through
here
it,
for,
Trevor.
right? So
Thank you. Thank you. Go for it.
yeah. So first off, let's kind of define what you're talking about. So
Yes.
a second home versus an income property are two different things. Second home, if you're buying it for your child to be going away to university, that's one thing. Versus it's for personal use. That could also include a college or vacation. I know we're specifically talking to college or university right now. The other piece is an income type of property. So that's where you're buying, I don't want to call it a rooming house, but a house where someone's going to come in and there's going to be multiple tenants. That's a whole different story. So,
Right.
yeah, the key difference is, the home for personal enjoyment or your child versus, an income property intended to make money
So
on it, right?
let me ask you this, Trevor, because can the second home, which is for your child, can it also serve as, a rental? Or is I know. Okay.
So as a second home, you need to qualify straight up. So it
Like
has
you
to be
do.
your own income sources. You can't take any income from the property. Doing it that way, you can put as little as 5% down, which is a huge advantage. You also usually get better rates doing a second home. Usually there's not a premium charge on it. Versus if you were to do it as an investment type of property, there's very few lenders that are interested in doing, what they would call as a rooming house, where there's multiple tenants all contributing to one rent. The lenders don't like that as much. So that is a little bit trickier for us to execute. So.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. So this conversation came up because I was assisting a mother who lives in Saskatchewan, and
Mhm.
when she was here in Guelph, she said, "Okay, my son goes to Guelph, first year on-campus housing residence, but looking to make a purchase potentially, right?" And
Yep.
so I'd say the biggest deterrent for her, the hindrance is that 20% down payment
Mhm.
for it to be an investment property. So another topic was, oh, maybe it can be a second home if her son is living in the home, right?
Yeah, and that's
Um,
exactly it. So, sorry to cut you off there.
no, no,
If
no.
the
Yeah,
son is
I
going to live in
take
the
it.
home,
Yeah,
then it can definitely be a second property. So two things there, you would only need to put as low as 5% down, which most people think you need 20 no matter what. No, you can do it with 5% as long as it's a second home for personal use. Any income from friends or whatever living, we wouldn't be able to use them though. So
no,
it is straight
yeah,
up. This is for the lender's perspective. It's your son's living there, and
right.
that's his home. So
And that is something like she would qualify entirely on her income for that property.
yeah,
Versus if it is an income property, you can qualify with some of the rental income.
exactly. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And is there, I'm sure there are, like you mentioned, there are better rates because it's a second home versus an income property, correct?
Yep.
Right?
And usually with a second home, there's no premium on it. It's the same kind of rate you would get on your principal home. If you are looking at investment property, there is a premium. Usually that's at least 35 points or 0.35%. It's just to mitigate some of the risk from the lender because, an investment property, they aren't taken care of quite as well as a home. So that's kind of where the lender wants to hedge their risk. So.
Unless you're really, really fortunate and blessed in that department somewhere.
I'd kill for some tenants like that. I don't
Oh,
know.
stop. I know, I know. Oh my God.
Actually, I have
No,
good
that's
tenants right
another.
now. If they're
We can't
listening,
get
you're
into
good.
that. We cannot get into that right now. No. So I'd
Yeah.
say, in terms of, long-term hold, Trevor, because that's a big reason why people invest in multiple properties, right?
Mhm.
Um, two things. So tax implications, what you can write off on an investment property versus what you can't in a second home. And
Mhm.
capital gains. Like, can you touch on some of that, those finer points?
Yeah, for sure. So, just to preface this is an accounting
I get it.
question,
I get it. Yes.
but I will answer what I know to
Yes.
Paella. So, as a second home, basically there is no tax benefit. You're going to be paying capital gains on anything that's not your principal residence. So it's just the second property. From an investment property, you can claim against your taxes, interest, maintenance, any repairs that are done. You do have to claim the income on your taxes as well. And then when you do sell, there'd be capital gains on that also. So there's some advantage to that. Usually, one of the recommendations I have is leverage that property as much as you can. So put as little down on that property, borrow against your own home if needed, or borrow against the rental property, excuse me, and apply that to your home. So your principal residence you're paying less on, and you're able to write off more on the rental property.
The
So that's kind
rental.
of one of the little things I recommend.
Okay, break that down again. Slow that down again.
Yeah, sure. So let's say you want to do so. Actually, I'll do it this way. Sorry,
Yeah.
pay down your principal residence as quickly as you can, and hold the debt in your rental property.
Right.
So if you need 20% down on the rental property, only put 20% down on the rental property. You're better to take the rest of that money invested in your principal to pay your own mortgage down, because there's no tax benefit doing that way. But with the rental property, you can write off the interest,
That's right.
the higher amount of interest. So a little
Yeah.
bit of benefit.
Makes sense. So let me
So
ask you, like, in having conversation with people, like, is one of the things that you bring up, is it okay, well, how long do you want to hold this for? Is that part of the equation in the conversation like that? If it's a true long-term hold and build wealth and generate for long-term, like versus this is just going to serve the child's education for that period of
yeah.
time?
A part of that decision will come into what type of mortgage product we put you in. So if
Mm,
it's just a year or two, we'd want to put you in something shorter or something that has a lower penalty, such as variable type product. If it's something you think you're going to hold on longer and you want to do a longer fixed rate, then that makes sense as well.
mm,
Basically, it's just kind of avoiding that the implications of a penalty should you decide to sell before end of term.
that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many things to consider. Like, is there sort of, if you were to think about like a client avatar, like, is there someone who you are right off the bat, you're like, you know what, you fit into this would be perfect as a second home versus an investment property for you? Like, is there some sort of person that fits into that?
Yeah, really it is if you're gonna have family living there, or
That's right.
that's really the defining factor, right? Again,
Yeah,
it's
because you're paying
personal use
capital
has to be
gains
immediate
either
family.
way.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I really just
Like I
think
say, you
it's
can write off more
important.
things on the maintenance piece, which is fantastic, right? So yeah,
Yeah, the write off for sure. It's that 20% down, I would say, is the biggest threshold to pass to get into the investment game, right?
yeah, that could be a challenge for sure. And then obviously, outside of the mortgage, you want to make sure you have good tenants. We kind of touched on before, and make sure it's cash flow positive is a good thing to look at as well. So it really makes sure making sure you're looking at the all the inputs from the property to make sure it makes sense.
For sure. Okay. I think that's really helpful, Trevor, because like this is, it was just an ongoing conversation. I know that
Mhm.
even when I put it out on my social stories, it was, hey, if you have information on a second home versus investment property, because, everybody wants, I would say, having a kid in high school now and potentially going to university or college wherever if he ever leaves home, um, that has crossed my mind. I am
Yeah.
curious, in a perfect world, I would love my child to be set up in a place that we own and he's taking care of it and it's some responsibility. And he can, of course, do that for some other landlord, but I'm built this way. I want to be the
Yeah.
landlord for, so
Yeah.
that's what, got me thinking on it too. And I know there's so many people who are on the cusp of having kids go to university or college and they're thinking it too, but they don't necessarily want to assume this landlord role because it's not for everybody. It really
Oh,
isn't.
yeah, it can be tough. And,
Yeah.
ideally, if you have somebody in there, whether they're, letting friends stay there or not, is somebody who is, invested in the property and going to take care of it. And that's a key piece to it.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that strategy.
Yeah.
Like my kids are 8 and 10, but, I envision the same thing when they
I
go off to
know.
university. It's like, hey, buy them a house. I'm in it for 3 or 4 years, and then we
Yep.
see where we go from there,
And
right?
then we
So
see where we go from there. That's right. Okay, Trevor, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you to further this conversation or any other kind of mortgage conversation?
I got a couple ways you can check me out online. So yourmortgagemadeeasy.ca. You can also email me, excuse me, at trevor@yourmortgagemadeeasy.ca, or give me a call, 416-315-3992.
That feels like it should be a
That's
radio
good.
jingle. It's been so long since
There
I've
you
heard a
go. I
phone
can sing
number.
it for you.
I love it. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you so much. This has been so informative.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me.